Foundation is having a Centennial celebration for the 100th birthday of the founder of ARP Synthesizers, R. Pearlman. I threw together a piece that I restricted myself to using only ARP instruments, and I'll play that for you now. And if you stick around till after it's over, I'll have a couple of more thoughts about synthesis and in general. Without further ado, here's All Things ARP. Okay, that happened. ARP Synthesizers and I go way back, all the way back to 1973 when I first started going to Berklee College of Music. The electronic music department there had just one synthesizer, but it was a doozy. It was a big ARP 2500. I had a lab class there where 1 hour a week I got to be turned loose to experiment on that thing, and that was big fun, and I learned a lot with that. And then when I moved to LA in the late 70s, I got a job at Guitar Center to tide me over until I busted into the music business. And they were an ARP dealer, and that gave me a lot of opportunities to explore everything that ARP made. And in fact, my colleague Jackson Howe, who was the head of the keyboard department, showed me, he said, "You ever seen this ARP 1601 sequencer? It can do this and that and the other." And we started fooling around and experimenting with that thing. Finally, we had 4 of them hooked up to every synthesizer in the keyboard department that had a control input. We had like a dozen analog synthesizers being controlled. I made a tape of that. I'd improvise along with what we had set up, and I recorded it. And that recording, I actually made a video of that. There's a link to it up there. While I was still working at Guitar Center, I get a phone call. A copy of that tape that I made had gotten to Stevie Wonder. And that started my next school, because the next thing I knew, I'm attending the University of Stevie Wonder for the next 3 years. And I didn't graduate, but I'm continuing my education at the University of Stevie Wonder online. And once in a while I get to, I run into the headmaster and we'll chat. I made a video about working with Stevie for the first time and about him hearing that tune. And there's a link to that up there. But now, in present day, ARPs are still being manufactured, both hardware and software, and that's because they were classic instruments, and they're still in demand, whether it's in digital form or hardware, whether it's a hardware recreation, or if you want to pay through the nose and get a $12,000 ARP 2600 from Reverb, well, have at it. What I'm particularly excited about are the digital plugins. Not just ARP, but all the synthesizers. They've come such a long way. They sound so good. There's even a plug-in of that old ARP sequencer, the 1601, which is a very, very cool step sequencer. You can even get an ARP 2500. The wizard Mark Barton has completely recreated every module of the ARP 2500. And you can get that as an add-on to Cherry Audio's voltage modular synthesizer. It's absolutely amazing. I'll give you a couple of examples of some of the presets that come with it. It's pretty crazy to think that you can get something that would have cost $20,000 back in the day. You had to be a rock star or a university to have one of these. But now you can get it for next to nothing, comparatively. It's very, very cool. These plugins are also a great way to learn subtractive synthesis. If you've never programmed a synthesizer and you're interested in it, this is a very inexpensive way to get into it. You know, I did a video how to learn how to program any synthesizer using a Mini Moog as the model, and but it applies to any synthesizer, any of these plugins. They're all basically subtractive synthesizers. They're laid out more or less the same way, and once you learn the basics, you've got a good foundation to go with practically any synthesizer. That video I did on how to program any synthesizer, there's a link to it up there. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. As always, thanks for watching. Mash that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.